Hey there, Randy Walker here from Vero Beach, Florida, and we just finished the 2023 US Open Tennis Championships. Amazing success, record crowds. You had Coco Gauff winning her first ever major singles championship. 55 years to the day that when Arthur Ashe won his first major title at the US Open in 1968. And of course, you have Novak Djokovic winning his historic 24th major singles title, tying Margaret Court for the all-time major singles victory lead. So historic U.S. Open, and certainly over the course of the tournament, you have a lot of questions about tennis and asking this question and that questioning and so forth. And one of the questions that I got on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, was about stadium naming. Of course, you have the tennis center there being named after Billie Jean King, the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, and of course the stadium court there is named after Arthur Ashe Stadium. The number 2 stadium on site is Louis Armstrong Stadium, who was not a tennis player, but was a resident of Queens, resident of Flushing, just around the street from the tennis center. And that was, it used to be called the Singer Bowl, and then it was named after Louis Armstrong, close to his passing, and was named Louis Armstrong Stadium when the USTA took over the management of the facility in 1978. As homage to and respect to Queens, they kept the name and honoring Louis Armstrong with the continuation of the stadium being named after him. But people have suggested, well, where's the Jimmy Connors Stadium, and where's the Chris Everett Stadium, and where's the Venus and Serena Williams Stadium, or where's the Althea Gibson Stadium? And my opinion on that is that you can't have everything named after a great American champion or U.S. Open champion. It also kind of diminishes, I think, Arthur Ashe Stadium and Billie Jean King National Tennis Center if you have other things named after, other players. And also it diminishes their, name if, like, there's a smaller stadium for Chris Everett, and she won more titles than Billie Jean King, or if you have a smaller stadium named after Jimmy Connors, etc. So I think it's fine as it is. Keep the stadium named after Arthur Ashe, keep the facility named after Billie Jean King, keep Louis Armstrong Stadium, and keep it at that. But one idea that I came up with just this morning as I was watching Coco Gauff on the Today Show, and I noticed that they had the trophy there on the set of the Today Show set when she was doing her interview, and the trophy that they had was the replica that was given to Coco. It wasn't the actual historic 50-year-old trophy, but it was the replica. And, it says United States Tennis Association U.S. Open Champion 2023, Coco Gauff. And that's the trophy that she takes home, etc. When I worked at the USTA, we actually had the actual historic trophy with all the names on it. And that was, taken on the media tours and so forth. But one interesting fact about the trophies is the women's trophy is smaller than the men's trophy. And, some people have criticized that and said, like, well, why is the women smaller, et cetera. This goes back to 1968 when there wasn't equal prize money and women were not seen as equal to men. So there's been some sort of controversy, little bit, about the size of the trophies, etc. When the players get the replica trophies, they get the actual big size. So the replica trophies are both the same size for men's singles and women's singles, but the actual perpetual trophy is smaller, which you can see in photographs and so forth. I remember in the US, when I worked for the USTA, that there was some sensitivity as far as, taking the pictures of the trophies when they're both together, that, you just didn't want to accentuate the fact that the women's was smaller. But, just in thinking, you look at the all the Grand Slam trophies, and all of them have names, and all of them have kind of personalities, except for the US Open. So you look back at the Australian Open, their trophies are named after 2 great Australian champions. The women's trophy, which is a distinct long-stemmed trophy, it's named after Daphne Ackhurst, who was one of the early great Australian champions. And the men's trophy, it was that big bowl, etc., is named after Norman Brooks, who was also one of the early Australian champions. So the Norman Brooks Memorial Trophy, the Daphne Acthurst Memorial Trophy. And they're both different, trophies. One has a long stem with a bowl, and one has a big bowl. So you can't really say like, oh, one's better than the other, or one's bigger than the other. So, and Tennis Australia's done a great job marketing them. And, whenever they do photo shoots or trophy tours, they're like, oh, here is, Caroline Wozniacki, Australian Open champion with Daphne, which they call the Daphne Actors Memorial Trophy. They call it Daphne, so it has personality. Same thing with, Norman Brooks. I remember Roger Federer saying, like, oh, Norman and I are going to have a great night together, etc. And the French Open has the Coupe de Musketeers, for the men's singles champion, which is named after the 4 French musketeers who famously won the Davis Cup in the 1920s and caused for the amazing growth and popularity of tennis in Paris and created the Roland Garros Stadium, etc. And the women's trophy at French Open is called the Coupe de Langlon, named after Suzanne Langlon, the great French champion of the 1920s, etc. One of the greatest personalities in the history of tennis. Wimbledon has and also just those trophies are distinctly different. So, there's no really comparison between one or the other. One's bigger than the other, etc. Wimbledon also has 2 distinct trophies. The women get the Venus Rosewater Dish, which is a big plate, which has been given out for decades. And the men's trophy is, the trophy with the pineapple on top, etc. Actually, at the top of my head, I can't remember if that actually has a name, but it's certainly very distinct in tennis history. So then you go to the U.S. Open, and what do you have? You have 2 cups. They don't have any name. They don't have any. It's just U.S. Open trophy. So when we talk about naming things, why not name the trophy after one of these great champions? You're almost at the point with these trophies for the U.S. Open where you're running out of space. It's been since 1968, 55 years, so you have 55 names on there, and you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to get to a lower, a stand below it to add to the names. But those trophies, they're not super historic. They're not super distinct. So maybe this calls for a reinvention of the U.S. Open men's and women's singles trophies. Even the men's doubles and women's doubles and mixed doubles, it's basically just a bowl. So, just was thinking a little bit this morning before I did this video, what could you name it? Could you name, the women's trophy, the, Venus and Serena Williams, U.S. Open women's singles trophy? Or perhaps Chris Evert. She won the U.S. Open 6 times. The Chris Evert U.S. Open Women's Singles Trophy. Maybe you name the women's trophy after Chris Evert, since she won it 6 times, and you name the women's doubles trophy after Venus and Serena, since they won the doubles title. Arguably the greatest doubles team of all time. That would be, an idea to throw out there. For the men, who would you name the men's singles trophy after? Well, there's 2 Americans that won 5 U.S. Open titles. First it was Jimmy Connors, who won it on 3 different surfaces. He won it on grass, he won it on clay, he won it on hard courts. You could argue that Jimmy Connors, love him or hate him, through the years, etc. He was the one guy, who really spearheaded the popularity of the U.S. Open and really brought tennis to the masses, out from the country club, to the public facility, to the masses, to the non-tennis fan, to just the sports fan. So there's certainly an argument to have the men's singles trophy named after, Jimmy Connors. There's been a little love-hate relationship there with the USTA and so forth, but you can't argue 5 titles, 3 different surfaces, and his impact on the tournament and tennis in the United States. The other guy who's won 5 singles titles at the U.S. Open is Pete Sampras, all-time greatest American men's tennis player. He won 14 major singles titles, was the record holder for all-time singles majors until Roger Federer broke it. Pete's obviously just tennis, that's it, no controversy, no glamour, no hype, etc. He's just like, get it done on the tennis court, that's it. Finish his career. Now he's just living the private life in Southern California, doesn't do a lot of appearances and so forth. But, boy, I mean, greatest record of any American men's tennis player ever. So you could argue, the Jimmy Connors Trophy, men's singles trophy, the Pete Sampras men's singles trophy, etc. What about the men's doubles trophy? The other player that was probably almost as equal to, or perhaps equal to, the bringing the popularity to the masses in the United States and elevating the popularity of the U.S. Open was John McEnroe. John McEnroe, it was famously tagged as the best doubles team ever was John McEnroe, whoever he's playing with. So, John McEnroe was arguably the greatest individual doubles player of all time. Perhaps you name the men's doubles trophy, the John McEnroe men's doubles trophy at the U.S. Open. You could also argue the Bryan brothers. They won more major doubles titles than any other, team, and, probably the greatest doubles team of all time. You could name the doubles trophy after Bob and Mike Bryan. And then you also have the mixed doubles trophy. What do you name the mixed doubles trophy after? So that's another, issue. And you can't also forget Martina Navratilova. She's probably the greatest, individual women's doubles player of all time. Certainly more of a argument there. You have Billie Jean King and, Venus and Serena, etc. So anyway, those are just a few ideas. I think the time might be come to rebrand and, give the U.S. Open trophies a little more personality rather than, just U.S. Open trophy, etc. And you can, show them off, in media tours and, before the tournament and after the tournament, etc. So anyway, just a few thoughts. I'll probably write about this on worldtennismagazine.com. So, feel free to, send your comments on this page, and let's get a dialogue going. So, Randy Walker from Vero Beach, Florida, over and out.